I call the May 4th, 2021 regular meeting of council to order. Councilperson Donovan will give the invocation this evening.
Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business at hand and guide us in wisdom with a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
Mrs. Dowling. Here. Mr. Kirchner.
Here.
Mr. Krieger.
Here.
Mr. Landig.
Here.
Mr. Marn.
Here.
Mr. Blake.
Good evening. As of the beginning of April, Council, as well as Municipal Planning Commission and Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, are back to welcoming the public to their meetings. Council Chambers has a reduced total occupancy of 41 with social distance seating. Masks are required for the audience and for those walking around the room. If you wish to speak about a particular item on the agenda, you will need to complete and submit the form available at the Council Chambers entrance tables to the Clerk of Council prior to the start of the meeting. You will be directed to the podium at the appropriate time. For the time being, we are still offering attendance via WebEx. If you are attending through the published WebEx link, you will notice a window open on the bottom right-hand side of the screen entitled Q&A. This window will have opened 5 minutes prior to the start of the meeting and will remain open for 10 minutes after the meeting begins for a total of 15 minutes. During that time, if you wish to address council at a later point in this meeting, please type your name, address, and the topic you wish to speak about. This is the only means for you to schedule your participation. At the appropriate time during the meeting, I will recognize you and you will be unmuted. You will be permitted to make comments to council on the topic you requested to speak about. If you wish to comment on an item on the agenda, you will be recognized when that item appears on the agenda. All other comments unrelated to the agenda items will be heard near the end of the meeting during the persons before council portion of the agenda. For those who are attending remotely, please make your speaking request at this time, and thank you for your virtual participation. Approval of minutes. Council, you received the minutes of the April 2021 work session.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling.
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Marn.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
The minutes of the April 2021 work session have been approved. Council, you also received the minutes of the April 2021 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling.
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Marn.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
The minutes of the April 2021 regular meeting have been approved. Public hearings, we have none. Tabled legislation, we have none. New legislation, ordinance number 21-0-029.
An ordinance to authorize advances of funds and revisions to appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malinowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Members of council, this ordinance does mainly approves a temporary cash advance out of the city's general fund to fund 3 separate federal grant funds, as noted in the staff report. It also includes the applicable appropriations that are necessary to cover these advances. And in addition, there's a small state grant fund that needs appropriations in order to close that fund out. I would recommend approval of the entire ordinance. Thank you.
Council,
Move to suspend.
Second.
please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling.
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Marn.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes. Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling.
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Marn.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Ordinance number 21-0-029 has been approved. Ordinance number 21-0-030.
An ordinance amending Part 1, Title 5, Section 151.13 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mentor 2006 as amended, the same related to compensation for employees, authorizing the city manager to increase compensation for non-bargaining unit personnel pursuant to Section 151.16 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. And council is aware that typically it is our practice to bring to council any consideration for increase in compensation once we have completed negotiations, predominantly, especially with our police and fire departments, since they have binding arbitration through conciliation. We have completed that, and obviously due to the pandemic, that resolution was much delayed. What this does is provide compensation to our non-bargaining employees within the city to allow up to a 2.5% increase retroactive to April 1st, 2020.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Move to suspend. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
yes,
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
yes,
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 21-0-030 has been approved. Second reading, there are none. Third reading, there are none. Manager's report. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. If I could, council, I'd ask Mr. Kaminsky, he's required to make some public comments to be in compliance with a grant that we received for the first phase of restoration of the stream at Springbrook Gardens Park. Mr. Kaminsky.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. The City of Mentor, in partnership with Chagrin River Watershed Partners and Lake County Soil and Water Conservation District, was awarded an Ohio EPA Section 319H grant in 2018. The site was home to a deep, channelized stream with no access to its floodplain and limited wildlife habitat. To address these issues, the channel was widened and the sand seepage berms were installed to help hold back the water and create wetland habitat. Through this project, 2.25 acres of the wetland were reconnected to the stream, 2.75 acres of wetlands were constructed and restored, and 2.75 acres were planted with native riparian and wetland species. And that handout that I showed you, you'll see on the back page the demonstration of what a sand seepage berm is, and then before, during construction, and after construction pictures for that. And you will see that the drastic improvement that had happened from the channelized stream to where it is now. And if you haven't been out there, it is pretty amazing what the site looks like and what it has done for the area and the nature that is into that. This would actually wrap up the grant. It had just finished. And this is now taking us into phase 2, which was bidded out and approved, and that will start in the next couple months. Thank you, Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. Kaminsky. And this information is now and will remain available to the public for review at the Parks and Recreation offices. Lake County will have a television collection day on Saturday, May 8th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Lake County Fairgrounds. For information, call the Solid Waste District at 440-350-2908 or visit their website. This National Police Memorial Week begins on Sunday, May 9th through Saturday, May 15th, a date that's dates that are very important to us. The following week on Friday, May 21st, the City of Mentor will send a contingent to attend the Cleveland Peace Officers Memorial Society Parade to commemorate officers who have died in the line of duty. Just a reminder to all our residents and our non-residents who work here, the 2020 tax filing deadline is Monday, May 17th. Blackbrook Golf Course is having a Mother's Day special on Sunday, May 9th for a free round of golf for all moms with a paying companion. Contact Blackbrook for details and tee times at 440-951-0010. The 2021 pool passes are on sale now for Mentor residents at the Recreation Department from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Bring a picture ID and a utility bill as proof of residency. Civic Center and Morton Pools are, as well as the free Walsh Spray Park, will open on June 6th. And Council, we do have several new businesses that we want to recognize today. Johnson Orthodontics at 7288 Mentor Avenue. True to Form Collision Repair Center doing business as Gerber Collision and Glass at 8710 Twin Brook Road, Kiko's Kitchen at 9179 Menor Avenue, and Andrew the Barber Shop at 9179 Menor Avenue. And again, during these difficult times of finding employees and taking the risk to invest, we definitely appreciate their confidence in our community and wish them great success. One last thing, Council, because I think this is significant enough to mention. We did finalize our Menor Rocks series, and we just learned that we confirmed that our final slot, which would be third week in July, will be filled by none other than Lita Ford. So that's two talented acts that have had records and national acts that we're going to bring on Tuesday night. So I think this is literally going to be our best year yet. And from the looks of it, it looks like we're going to be able to have some pretty large crowds out there come mid-June or so. So we're excited about that. That's all.
Thank you. Clerk's correspondence. Julie?
Nothing to report.
Commission committee reports. Meeting minutes, Tree Commission, March 10th, 2021. Old business. Hearing none. New business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Martin.
in conjunction with Mr. Flipiak's statements, I'd like to make a motion to move the start times from the June 1st, June 15th, July 6th, and August 17th regular meetings to 5:30 due to time conflict with Menor Rocks. We have a number of city employees that work here and also work there, and it's hard for them to be at two places at once, so.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Anything else under new business, council?
Mr. President,
Mr.
if there's
Kirchner.
no other new business at this time, I move that we adjourn into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121-22, Paragraph G, Section 2, to consider the purchase of property for public purposes and for the reason that the premature disclosure of information would give us an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose personnel private interest is adverse to the general public interest. And additionally, that we move to conference with the law director regarding two pending court cases.
I'll second exactly what he said.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
That whole bottle of water at council.
Mr. President, I would move that we go back into our regular council session.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Persons before council. I see that there are no requests for persons before council. There are none.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.
Tell me to go